Frankie Rose, Love is Projection album review. Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this latest album from Miss Frankie Rose, who, God, one way or another, has always had a big influence on my musical taste. I have enjoyed just about every project she's ever been a part of, whether it be Dum Dum Girls, Crystal Stilts, or Vivian Girls. Frankie's music, whatever her collaboration with the band or whatever, sort of influence she had on the band, I've always enjoyed it. And for the most part, I have enjoyed a lot of her solo stuff too. Her debut album, Interstellar, I thought it was a fantastic solo debut. This is the sort of synth-heavy, sugary sweet, 80s tinge synth pop that I could just eat for days. Now, her follow-up album, Hair and Wild, honestly, I thought it was a little bit tougher to grasp. This, to me, overall showed Frankie taking a lot more risks, and when they paid off, I was so incredibly impressed with what she was putting out. The only issue I had with the album was that when they were bad, they flopped really, really hard, and I kind of just wished she went back to basics. Now, I did get back on track with 2017's Cage Tropical. Here, she did just that. She took things back to basics with her sound. Like, it wasn't a big, bold statement of an album, I wouldn't say that, but the big 80s beats and the good vibes are enough to win me over here. Now, the last time we heard from Miss Rose was with 17 Seconds, and this was, I thought, by far her most experimental album to date. But, much like a few years earlier, I had a lot of mixed emotions. I thought that so many of these experiments came off really sharp, showed her pushing in some new directions that were really exciting, but maybe the material here wasn't as offensive when it was bad, but I certainly didn't remember about half of the album, which was a problem in its own right. Now, it's been 6 years since we've heard Frankie on a solo album by herself, and these singles, they hittin' alright, they hittin'. Let's chat about this thing. 16 Ways starts this album off. It is a big, beefy, synth-heavy 80s tinged jam like Frankie Rose can only put together, and the only thing piercing these big beats are her really angelic vocals, which come off really nice here. It's sweet, it's charming, it's very 80s, and most of all, it's done right. And at the end of the day, I have to ask myself, is this anything game-changing or bold from Frankie Rose? And I'd answer no. No, it's not. But this is the sort of intoxicating, wonderfully produced track from Frankie Rose that I can't say no to. I've loved this track since it dropped as a single. On the other hand, I think Anything is just about the best track here. I mean, God, it's so catchy. It's bouncy, it's sugary sweet, and leave it to Frankie to put a hook like this together. It is inescapable. For pristinely produced, incredibly charming throwback pop, look no further. Saltwater Girl, on the other hand, is a much different tune from Frankie. It is much more of a ballad, and it is beautiful. I just love her very pensive vocal performance here, and the shimmering synths that we get throughout are just icing on the cake. And it's not a heartless, sort of, dreary ballad either. It is full of passion, and her vocals are spectacular. While it's icy, icy cold from a distance, it certainly has a lot of heart to it, and that's what I love. And Feel Light, as a sort of interlude that we get here, it's the shortest track here by far. It's only about 1 minute and 30 seconds long. It is done so well. I love how cloudy, how dreamy this track is. And some of the vocal effects that Frankie uses, and some of the layering that she puts on top of her voice, it's just done so well. Like, I actually get the chills at points. It's short, it's sweet, it actually gives me the chills. I mean, while I'd argue that this album is fairly straightforward, it's working for me. And honestly, that's kind of one of my biggest issues with the album. I do really love this album and love what Frankie's doing here, but I really just wish she pushed it just a little bit further and those experiments kind of landed for once, because that's something that we haven't heard from her in a full album mindset. And outside of that, there are 2 tracks that I just can't get with at all. Like Had It Wrong, for example. This shows Frankie pushing herself out of her comfort zone, but I kind of wish she didn't do that. This is one of the darker, much more atmospheric tracks here. It almost sounds like something out of the book of like Julie Cruz, but this low-key, melancholy track, it's just, fuck man, it's average. And Frankie just sounds exhausted by the end of this track. What happened here? And DOA, what in the hell is this track? Besides ugly, because it certainly is ugly, it is the worst track here by far. This semi-industrial beat outside of Frankie's vocals just sounds awkward. This track is so sluggish. It is a pain to get through. It is 4 minutes and 10 seconds, but it feels like 8 minutes. And not only that, but it's jam-packed of production tricks and sound effects that I just don't think are necessary. Yuck. Outside of that, though, if you are looking for a short, sweet, nothing fancy indie pop project with a whole lot of character and even more catchy hooks, check this out. Sleeping Night and Day is one of the more breezier, airier tracks on this album. It's bouncy, it's sweet, it is so full of love. Alongside this very spacious instrumental in this impeccable hook that is inescapable, Frankie puts some gold together here. I can't stress it enough. The hooks on this album are so charming and instantaneous. Molotov in Stereo, on the other hand, is one of the bulkier and more atmospheric tracks here, which I'm going to be honest, most of them haven't been too exciting. But the truth is, this is one of the most cinematic and vast tracks here, and it is good. The layers of synths, Frankie's vocals, just how dense it is. This works. It's lush, it's kaleidoscopic. This is the kind of risk that really works out for her, and I hope we hear more from it in the future. Comeback is beautiful. I mean, it is just gorgeous. I've enjoyed it since it dropped as a single. The heavy synths, Frankie's heavenly vocals, the pristine production, this is ear candy. And when the beat drops to this track, which still caught me off guard, even though I've heard the track plenty of times, hold on to your seat. This track is great. The hooks alone on this album, yes, please. And Frankie does all this without coming off cheesy. Do you know how hard that is? It's pretty hard. And Song for a Horse, from a distance, I didn't think I was going to like it. This is a much more ethereal and whimsical jam, and here we don't get a synth-driven beat or anything like that. We just get hazy production and Frankie's very hazy, almost haunting vocals. It's very Twin Peaks. Like, really Twin Peaks. I made it like 2 months without talking about Twin Peaks. It works, though, as a finale goes. I'm actually kind of taken aback by just how spiritual and beautiful this track comes off. But listen, overall, this is a very straightforward, short, sweet, and nothing too fancy pop album with some big hooks, some solid production, and some big synths. And for me, that's all I need at the end of the day. My two biggest issues with this album, those two tracks that get ugly, get really, really ugly, and make me wish that, I don't know, that Frankie would just keep things simple. But then on the other hand, you know, I'm still in this boat where I'd love to see her push out more, which she certainly did in the second half of this album, but I want to hear more of it. And most importantly, I want to hear more of that lands correctly. But overall, there's nothing wrong with this album. No, sir. No, madam. There is nothing wrong with this album. It is catchy. It is well produced, well performed, and it makes me happy. I'm feeling a very, very, very light 8 on this album. But let me know what you all think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.